Hey, welcome back. My name is Kay Moon, and I'm a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel. And this is a video about our Virgo full moon lunar eclipse taking place on March 3rd at 6:34 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check a time zone converter for your local time. I am so excited to be here with you for another lunation. And what a lunation this will be. This full moon lunar eclipse is definitely going to be one for the books. I do believe it's going to be one where, when we look back in the fullness of time, we're able to see it was the beginning of a lot of internal change and decisions that led to shifts in our exterior world. So I'm excited to break that down for you. Before we get into it, I wanted to make sure you knew that Star Club 2.0 has relaunched. It is open, and I would love to welcome you to our community. There's already a really great group of people who have joined. Spaces that come with readings are moving quickly. If you've wanted a reading with me, now is the time to join. There are spots left for next Thursday and Friday at the time of this recording if you decide to jump into a new or full moon membership. We also will have our first lunar circle this Saturday, and lunar circles are a type of live event. Star Club comes with four different types of live events. You'll see we did a follow-up from Saturn and Neptune and Aries. I did an all 12 signs breakdown. Astrological lives will also have an all 12 signs breakdown for the Aquarius Leo eclipse cycle for all 12 signs are a big part of Star Club. I want you to understand the way this energy is going to work and have application for your sun, moon, rising, and stelliums in your chart. Every new and full moon will also be doing something called a lunar circle. Thank you guys who voted on Lunar Circle inside of our post section on YouTube. I went with your suggestion. I really appreciated it. Lunar Circles are where I will provide additional content not published on YouTube, plus journal and ritual prompts and Q&A for every single lunation. So if you've ever left a lunar update going, what did she mean by that? Come find me in Star Club. I'll tell you exactly what I meant and exactly how to use it. For those who decide to join as full moon members, I do offer live readings for you. You do need to sign up as a full moon member. We do these fishbowl style, and it's a great way for you to get support at a massive discount, something like 40% off of the 30-minute relationship reads, and you get three of them over the course of 3 months when you join. So it's a really great savings for those of you who know you need support, but you need support in a way that is going to be more cost effective. Those of you who are part of the group can listen in and learn how I break down a chart and also ask questions in between readings to better understand the way readings work. And then lastly, as a fourth live event that comes with Star Club, you do get member voted lives. And these are where you guys pick the topic and I'll break it down. If I can build a chart for it, I can read it for you. And some of the members have already requested that I do a breakdown of what's coming next economically and policy-wise in the United States. So I'm going to be doing that. And if you want me to look at your country, your city, your municipality, you can have me do that for $22 a month. It is literally that cost effective to join. I wanted to step into more teaching and less reading this year because this year is going to be a super intense year. This year is coming with a lot of change. It's coming with an extraordinary level of pressure to step into the next season of our lives and to leave behind ways of the past. And so, Star Club is going to give you some real clarity about what to do, when to do it, how it works, how to operate given the challenges in this energy. Because as you saw in January, it was already really intense. And we have like 10 more months of this. I want you to be able to have the support without the guesswork and without the price tag, and I want it available for more people. So, if you're ready for that, join Star Club now. Like I said, there are very limited spots left for readings. They're going quite quickly, and we could be talking as early as next Thursday or Friday if you're ready to jump in. And everyone who joins before March 3rd is going to get access to my 2026 retrograde guide. I'm so excited to share that with you. This retrograde guide maps out all of the retrogrades for this year, including Chiron and Juno, so that you know how to work with the key dates, the themes, and what each retrograde will be about in detail so that they don't derail your plans or leave you waiting until they're over, which is going to be really critical if you have plans on a deadline. It comes with this handy retrograde at a glance calendar that lets you know what months are going to be retrograde heavy and which planets so that you understand what that's about. And then I give you a breakdown for every single retrograde for the year, what's coming, what to expect, how to work with it, and specifically themes so that you're getting the most out of it instead of getting bullied by it, which I think is something that a lot of people don't focus on. They want to talk about what not to do during a retrograde. In my guide, I'm going to tell you what you can do in a retrograde and what you should be doing and what you should be focusing on so that the retrograde doesn't impact your money, doesn't impact your relationship, doesn't impact your living situation, and instead is a way for you to grow even in seasons of retrograde energy. Like I said, we have one for Juno and Chiron as well, which a lot of astrologers won't report on, but I included them because I understand that the needs of this channel, or you guys are very sensitive, you feel energy early and you feel a lot of it. Chiron is definitely key for that, and many of you identify as divine counterparts, and I want you to be able to have information about not just Jupiter, but also Juno, the divine feminine, and her retrograde. So if you got this far, thank you for listening to the intro. I absolutely love, adore, and appreciate you for that. It is once a quarter that I run a program and need to get it off the ground in order to be both of service and also keep the lights on over here. And so when you bear with me for these 14-day launch periods, please trust me. I know you just want me to get to the info, but I also appreciate that you appreciate that I need to eat. So thank you for that. And if you're joining me in Star Club, I'll see you soon. Let's talk a little bit about this full moon lunar eclipse. And before we do, question of the day is this. Let me know in the comments. Um, have you experienced this full moon lunar eclipse has a lot of activity in Pisces? And I'm just curious, last time we talked about dreams, but I'm just curious, sleep-wise, have a lot of you been sleeping a lot? I know I have been more tired than usual. As we've come into this energy, and there you can see the stellium in Pisces. Pisces governs dreams and sleep. My dreams have been extremely revealing, lots of intuitive downloads, and sleep has just been so yummy. Um, I've really had to kind of work around sleep, but I think some of this too just maybe like hibernation energy as a mammal living in the northern hemisphere. However, I also know that with so many planets in Pisces, this can impact people in the southern hemisphere as well. So let me know, have you been sleeping more? Have your dreams been especially revelatory? I'm super curious. All right, let's talk about this closing eclipse, Virgo full moon lunar eclipse. So full moons do portend closures and endings, but when they are coincided with a lunar eclipse, These are closing and endings on steroids, as my astrology teacher Nadia Shaw says. These are closing and endings that are massive. And so there is a lot of closing, a lot of wrapping up energy here. Some of you are even feeling that pressure to wrap things up, close them out in your lives. I'd be really curious how that's playing out for you. But another thing about this that seems important to mention is that there's a ton of mutable energy here as well. Lots of placements in the mutable signs. We've got Lilith up here in Sag. We've got a beautiful Pisces stellium. And we also have the moon over here in Virgo, alongside the South Node. And so, with so many placements in mutable signs, this is wild card energy. Things can go either way. They can also bend and pretzel in unanticipated ways to stay stuck if you or someone is committed to a particular path. You can get that path to yield to you by being flexible in the ways you approach control. This can be a great thing in situations where stubborn players need to create flexibility to find mutual ground and ways forward, but it can also be a really unhelpful thing. This is the kind of energy where people can do any and everything to get their way. And with there being a lot of placements in water signs, you see there's high water placement here in this chart. We'll talk about which placements they are in a moment. This includes heavy emotional manipulation that feels so truthful. Both the manipulator and the manipulated can believe what's being said or shown as true. So, discernment will be key. Let's talk about this particular full moon's energy more directly. Here's our full moon in the sign of discernment. That's Virgo. Thank goodness for that. Um, and it's conjunct the South Node, which is right here at the 8th degree of Virgo. Whenever there are significant events conjunct the South Node, one of two things can happen. Something returns from the past for closure. And we get that closure because in the present time, the right teachers are available, the right tools are available, the growth has been done in a particular way so that both people can be aligned to create that closure. Alternatively, there can be a resuming of something from the past if it comes back to take its next evolutionary step. Now, for all of us collectively, with the North Node in Pisces, we're meant to be learning more about releasing, letting go, allowing, going with the flow, how to work with the subconscious, spirituality, mirrors, the arts, our intuition. Where the North Node is, that's our direction of growth. Where the South Node is, this is what we're meant to be in the midst of letting go of. And so this is a huge season when life is mirroring back to us what we've believed in, the choices we've made, and their consequences, whether we intended those consequences or not. It's an opportunity to course correct, not just individually, but also collectively. Now, because the governing planets of this full moon, Virgo has two governing planets, I should say. Ancient governor of Virgo is the moon. Modern governor of Virgo is Mercury. Okay. Both governors of Virgo um, are in action with this Virgo full moon lunar eclipse, which is going to make it all that much more potent because Mercury is opposite the full moon here. It's creating a little bit of tension. Mercury is also retrograde. Mercury will retrograde back over the North Node. It's crossed over it once, and then it'll cross over it again when it comes out of retrograde. Whenever we have a planet retrograde conjunct the North Node, it's because energy from that planet, represented by a person or a situation, is going to come into our lives. This is going to be something with a mercurial nature, something that moves fast, talks a lot, is very heady, is about consciousness and communication. What's interesting about this is because we're dealing with this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, Mercury is the governor of Virgo. South Node is passing through Virgo. This is very likely to be something from the past that comes into the present for us to deal with and reconcile, something that's needed closure, needed resolution. And now we have the correct tools to either close it or continue it, but believe it, something or someone is going to come back into your life from the past. To get a better understanding of this, you want to look at the houses that Mercury governs in your chart to get a clearer idea of what's coming back and the way it will return. The way it's going to return overall for all of us, it's going to be super Piscean in nature. So we're talking mirrors, reflections, dreams, art projects, and places, television and film, AI, emotional, spiritual. You can look to the house that Pisces governs in your chart for greater clarity about what that's going to mean for you. And again, if you're joining Star Club, we can be talking about this next Thursday or Friday if you get one of the memberships with the savings on the readings. Activation points. Take these dates down. Would have been 30, 60, and 90 days ago at the most, 30, 60, and 90 days into the future as well. Most people would have found this energy impacting them roughly around the 30 and 60-day mark if you're one of the people who feels it early. And you'll also find it impacting your lives up to 90 days from now. Dates wise, we're talking about on or around February 1st, January 2nd, February and December 3rd. And then for the post-eclipse activation dates, we're talking about April 2nd, May 2nd, and June 1st. Okay, so let's get into more detail about this full moon in Virgo, talk about the breakdown here. We have an opposition to the sun, of course, but the sun is conjunct Pallas right here at the 12th degree of Pisces. This can make us super protective of our emotions in particular and feel quite guarded and precautious. This can create tension if we're being hard to read or finding others difficult to connect with or being evasive about the details. Virgo needs the details. This energy can make us suspicious and looking for red flags where there are none, or our extra cautious behavior can cause red flags in other people as well and make them suspicious when they don't really need to be. So stay mindful of that. This is a great time to offer more communication, not less, in connections. There's also an additional interpretation and experience you may have since she's in Pisces. Pallas here is in Pisces. Um, and that's at the opposite extreme. And that's a complete and total failure of boundaries, like boundaries getting dissolved, getting carried away in the emotional or spiritual realms and getting inundated or flooded with psychic intel or emotions. And this can create disruptions to your day, your routines, and your ability to get things done with Moon in Virgo. It's very much an energy of emotional undoing, being spiritually unmoored. And that can cause us to look for security outside if we're finding it hard to cultivate inside, like security in lists, to-do list, orders, control energy. This can also include a lot of rehearsing drama through rumination on what could have been said different, what we can say next time. What if they say XYZ and how we'll respond? That's all because of Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Thank you very much. Speaking to that Pallas in Pisces. Stay mindful of this in relationships where the bond is not secure. We can lean heavily on others to be our security blanket, regulate us, beyond what is healthy co-regulation, beyond what is healthy bonding. Those of you who know you struggle with insecure attachment, be mindful. This energy can be more triggering to those insecurities at present time. Okay. So you're going to want to do your practices that help you practice being secure and be very intentional about that at this time. Likewise, those of you who lean avoidant, you will find that this energy, especially because people around you and in the collective may be feeling more needful of security at this time, you may feel even more likely to shut down. Be mindful of that. This is where you're going to want to utilize and practice those behaviors for secure attachment in this energy. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's an opportunity for growth for everyone. Okay. The added strain on relationships can make connections harder to be in. Yes, we all need a little extra support from time to time. Avoidant people, I know you source that from within. Anxious people, I know you source that from without. But this is the time to really balance that for stability in relationships holistically, family, friendships, romance, teacher, student, doctors, whomever you work with, therapists, etc. Okay. With Palace and the Sun speaking, Sun is our own identity. This is the time to really source that support from self, and in Pisces to also source it collectively, spread it around. Don't just try to source it from one person or extract it from one connection. More generally speaking, encouragement, kind words, and reassurance, those are going to go a long way in connections in this energy. So feel free to be liberal with it, even if no one's asked for it. Share that, encouragement, share the love, like, hey, just thinking about you, I'm dealing with my own stuff, but, just wanted to let you know, we're all good. I love you. Bye. This sort of small things like this can prevent really big misunderstandings at this time. We also see full moon is opposite Nessus here. Um, and Mercury retrograde. So let's talk about what this means. So Mercury is said to not do well in Pisces when it comes to communication and be even worse at communication in retrograde. Anecdotally, however, anyone I've seen born with Mercury in Pisces is actually very emotionally intelligent and sensitive in communication. Nevertheless, with Nessus conjunct, this is where we get kind of the worst coming out of Mercury in Pisces, especially Mercury retrograde in Pisces, because this is where we get more than a little bit obsessive about our thoughts and our communication. And because of the mutable energy, this isn't brute force. This is covert coercion and subtle manipulation, especially with Venus involved. Now let's add baby girl to the mix. Here's Venus at the 26th degree of Pisces, opposite the full moon, slightly opposite, not totally, but definitely conjunct that Mercury. Now, traditionally, Venus in Pisces is unconditional love energy, but with these two and influencing these two, this is like codependent obsession meets rumination rodeo. Lots of heart and mind activation tied up in ego's willingness to do anything it can to get whatever it wants in shadow, or throwing up your hands and doing absolutely nothing at all, just spinning and spinning and spinning. Like some people are going to have the experience with this full moon lunar eclipse, like the pinwheel on your computer that says it's thinking. It's like you're just stuck in the pinwheel energy. In the light, however, this energy is holding our fingers to the fire when it comes to understanding any long-standing habit or behavior that we've had attachment to that needs to be dug up at the root in the subconscious mind. Pisces is the subconscious, Mercury is the mind, retrograde is review. Unfortunately, with this kind of placement, the way out is through So we may indulge the habit or behavior as a way of better understanding it before we dig it up. Now, whether that's some maladaptive daydreaming, addictive behavior, or substance, trauma dumping, running and shutting down, or and hiding when what you really need is support and connection. The energy here speaks to some form of go-to habit coming up for release. Venus, when mixed up with this, the Nessus and Mercury retrograde piece, provides more attachment than it does love. It operates in more passion and desire than it operates in unconditionality. Now, this full moon here also has a super loose trine to Juno there in Capricorn. Okay. And this is the relationship kicker. Now, because Juno is in the mix here, this is speaking to some format of relationship closure. While it's most likely a pattern or a habit, given that the full moon lunar eclipse is in the sign that governs our routines and habits, that's Virgo, it can also be the closing to a stage of connection. So let's say you guys were just getting to know each other. Now you move into official dating, boyfriend, girlfriend. You move from boyfriend, girlfriend to being engaged. You move from being engaged to being married. You move from being just getting married to moving into each other, moving in with each other, this sort of thing. Alternatively, because Juno is in the sign that deals with work, this can be some closure to something in the connection having to do or coming from loss of a job. So, severance of a business partnership, a love connection through the workplace closing or ending because one of you gets let go, transferred, or the organization closes. In a few cases, this could be where a separation or breakup initiated by one of the partners, and specifically the one with more feminine energy, as both signs, Virgo and Capricorn, and both planets, the moon and Juno, are feminine. So it does look like some sort of feminine initiation of closure. It could be any gender. We all have both energies that we work with in our own fields. We also see this full moon is sextile to Jupiter for my twin flames. Pay attention, because I won't be repeating this in the twin flame update, what I just said for Juno and what I just said for what I'm about to say for Jupiter. This moon sextile Jupiter is saving grace energy at this eclipse. As intense as some of the other energies are at this full moon, this energy opens up some compassion, goodwill, some optimism. This is an energy we can tap into if we're feeling closed off, frustrated by others, or suspicious and guarded about what's unfolding. Now, if you're willing to, this is a great transit for sharing your feelings with someone, opening your heart, being honest and vulnerable, as there can be a lot of understanding here that overrides some of the challenges of this full moon lunar eclipse. As long as it's well timed, as long as it's not forced, as long as both people are open, this can become the kind of sharing that brings people closer together instead of a trauma dumping sesh. Okay. Some of the conversations that come up can actually clean up communication challenges from the first 7 weeks of 2026, especially for those of you who've kind of put your foot in it with someone. This is the right time with Mercury retrograde, speaking to Jupiter retrograde at this full moon lunar eclipse, to just acknowledge what was said, the way it was said, how things were handled, apologize, acknowledge impact, ask for forgiveness, and to create a clean slate, a redo, a start over. Great time for that here, okay? We do see this full moon is also in a sextile. It's very loose, but it's there. Uh, um, with Haumea there in Scorpio. It's not exactly as much of a semi-sextile as I would like. It's like 2 degrees off, but she's headed in that direction. She's gonna be speaking to the place the eclipse happened by loose semi-sextile. Um, there's a little creativity here, but again, since she's retrograde, this is a pause for a check-in, a relaunching of something old, repurposing something into new creative potential. What's most likely is something scorpionic or Virgoan. So we're talking about something that has to do with service, routines, self-care, health, or on the scorpionic side, something metaphysical, sex, death, and other people's money. We're also talking about something that could have something to do with our routines. Now, whether this is dusting off a project, relaunching a business, pulling out that tarot deck that you shelved, this is great energy for channeling creative energy to deal with something out of the past. And this only gets stronger post-eclipse, okay, in the days following the eclipse. We'll also see a square to Lilith in Sagittarius from this full moon lunar eclipse. So this can create some tension in figuring out how to balance emotional connection with others and emotional connection with self. The truthy energy of Sagittarius, influencing Lilith's need to do things her own way, are sitting in tension with the full moon's deliberation, decisiveness, and decision-making energy here in Virgo. Now, this can create inner conflict where what you feel like is your truth and what others feel like they need from you just don't line up. Additionally, this can show itself as a challenge, knowing what you want due to conflicting priorities, and ultimately needing to find more aligned ways to honor your needs in at least one area of life. If you felt pulled in different directions and like your to-do list has too many competing priorities with your needs and self-care, this is a big part of why. And this energy, like I said, 90 days worth of activation going all the way back to the beginning of December for those of you who are extremely sensitive, 60 days worth for the mildly sensitive, 30 days worth for the sensitive. Okay, so all of this energy of feeling sort of torn. Thank you, Lilith. Thank you, full moon. The tension here, its job is to help us start to focus in on what's a need and what's a want. What is our third dimensional life demand versus what's aspirational at this point? It's stripping back to basics. Okay. We also see a trine to Pholus in Capricorn. Let me pull that out. So here's full moon, here's Pholus in Capricorn. And here is the kicker. I wish I could erase Pholus from the sky, but I can't. With Pholus, there's always a warning to stay aware of your surroundings because being in the wrong place at the wrong time can have unintended consequences. Now, in particular, we're talking about situations that have to do with institutions like government, law enforcement, healthcare, education, etc. Be mindful of being where you need to be. Stay focused and stay alert. This is not the right time for extra added side quests or getting sucked into other people's stuff. This is the right time to really be putting yourself first, focusing on what your life needs, and really aligning accordingly. I'm going to now talk about signs who will feel it most before I get into the first look at the new moon in Pisces. So signs who are going to feel this full moon Virgo lunar eclipse most, of course, Virgo, sun, moon, rising, and stellium. Then we're talking about Pisces, sun, moon, rising, and stellium. Gemini, sun, moon, rising, and stellium. Sagittarius, sun, moon, rising, and stelliums. Taurus and Capricorn, sun, moon risings, and stellium. So it's a lot of us. So if you're feeling any of this, just know that this energy, the tension in this energy is meant for reflection and then betterment, like taking new actions. You're not alone. The pressure in this energy is really designed to help us clean up what needs to get cleaned up so that we can step into our next chapter. Elsewhere in the sky, and this was a segment that I used to have pre-2025 in all of my lunar updates, I would always talk about other energies. So I'm going to be deep diving elsewhere in the sky. For Star Club members, this Saturday, I will be sharing Nessus, Mercury retrograde, and Venus conjunct here in Pisces. While sextiling Juno here in Capricorn, it's going to be a big deal for love, y'all, especially if you've had love relationships change in the last 90 days. It's probably some of this energy. And in addition to that, we see all of these trining. We see a trine to Jupiter also for Venus. Okay. From Cancer, and we're going to talk about the impact that this will have on romantic and business relationships and communication and how to work with it to avoid accidental sabotage while both Mercury and Jupiter are retrograde. In Star Club on Saturday, we're also going to talk about Juno and Capricorn, who is trine Uranus and Taurus, and all of the ways this can be used constructively in love, because there is energy here that can take you by surprise. I want you to know what the surprises can be so you know how to work with them and what to avoid so things don't suddenly go sideways during a closing eclipse, because that's absolutely a possibility here. We're going to talk about Saturn, Neptune in Aries and the way that they are sextiling Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus, trine Lilith in Sagittarius, and semi-sextile Mars here in Pisces at 0 degrees. That whole configuration that I just drew out for you, this is why it feels like some changes are happening suddenly and others are moving slow, and why it all feels really urgent right now. And we're going to talk about which things to focus on now in order to get the slow things to open up and move faster, especially if you're on a deadline, and especially if you felt stuck or blocked in certain areas of your life. This is the configuration that has us feeling like we've got one foot in one new life, one foot in old life. There's a potential for the same kind of events that took place the first several weeks of January to repeat themselves with this configuration. Again, in Star Club, I'm going to show you how to constructively channel this energy and what to avoid to stay out of harm's way. I'll also share what to focus on to get fully into your new life with minimal drama or breakdowns, which is going to be helpful if you're feeling that internal pressure to get moving. We'll also talk about Chariklo Vesta in Aquarius with Mars in Pisces here. That configuration is speaking to Chiron and Eris, now joined by Ceres in Aries. They are also speaking to all of the energies I just mentioned, except for Saturn and Neptune. This is going to add some gasoline to the fire in some really interesting ways. And I want to break that all down for you when you join Star Club and join me on Saturday so that you know what you need to focus on. So if you want in on this extra insight, I'll share it with Star Club members. Join now. Link to do so is in the description box. Memberships that come with readings are available, but they're also selling, especially the private reading spots. And I'd love for you to have one, especially since the savings on readings is so significant and this year is so transformational. All right, now let's take a look at this new moon in Pisces. I want to give you my first impressions of it. All right, so here is our new moon in Pisces taking place on March 18th at 9:23 p.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboards of the United States. First impression, interesting, tons of cardinal energy, tons of water energy Here's our new moon in Pisces at the 28th degree of Pisces. Fascinating. Conjunct Saturn and Neptune. I was about to make a portmanteau called Sneptune, which they might as well be called at this point. Oh my gosh. Um, okay, so we've got that going on. We've still got a ton of Pisces juju, so very emotional time. Um, we also see semi-sextile to Chiron and Eris in Aries, sextile to Uranus. We also see Juno, Pluto conjunct in the sextile formation to this new moon in Pisces. What I'm going to say about it is this is going to be a very empowering period of time. If you have felt daunted by the way that 2026 created so much emotional overwhelm just in the first 8 weeks, because of the headlines in the news, the changes in your country where you live, the way the world is changing, the way your own life is changing, and it's created so much overwhelm that you've been emotionally paralyzed in certain ways. This is when you're going to be able to feel like you're able to get unstuck and then focus in a little bit on what needs to happen and starting to move in ways that are undeniable. There are some changes that I see that may come sudden, they may be urgent, they may be the kinds of changes that you weren't anticipating. However, if you look at the writing on the wall, the history leading up to 3/18, March 18th, you will understand that these changes were a natural outcome of 2 plus 2 makes 4. They were inevitable. They were going to be what happened as a result of the way choices that had been made previously, things that had been unfolding up until this point, um, just natural consequence. But the natural consequence may be the kind of thing that feels like it comes out of nowhere. That being said, between now and then, what I want you to start to do is really utilize this Virgo full moon to focus very intently on what your life needs and block out noise. Because in doing so, Virgo's all about priorities, details, lists, order, and really focusing on what's of higher level order for your life at this point, you're going to be able to start to make movements toward this new moon in Pisces that allow the energy to be something that you're directing kind of like a lightning rod instead of something that's happening to you like getting struck by lightning, if that makes sense. Okay, I know it makes sense. I don't know why I just said that. Listen, people, I really want you to join Star Club with me. I think it's going to be an amazing way for all of us to stay in touch this year, for me to get you extra information. This year's intensity does not let up. It is a bit of a pressure cooker. I want you to have more support, not less. Join me in Star Club so that I can give that to you. Memberships start at 22 USD a month. It is super affordable. I heard from my folks over in South Africa and Hungary. I heard from my folks in Australia. Listen, Kay, we want to work with you, but the conversion rate locks us out. This is my answer to that. I can give you more information as long as I'm working with more people to do that in Star Club. And I can also help us collectively take these steps forward by understanding how to work with the energy instead of letting the energy work us. I can't wait to see you inside. Link to join is below. Take great care and bye for now.